There is a place in the galaxy that has seen more bloodshed than any other world bar none. For all know that the wars on Holy Terra make it the most important and blood-soaked planet in the universe. But it was not always so. For once upon a time, there was a world that was the center of an empire built on one thing, and one thing alone: war. And that world is now called Armageddon. It could always be worse. It was what we said all of the time. Well, not all of the time, but often enough. It was our little code sign. We're stuffed. We're utterly buggered. But we're still here, so it could be worse. I've never known it to get better, ever. From my first days to my last. It never goes up, always down. My own miserable existence proves that. But it could always be worse. It's also now become a bit of a thing, almost a challenge. Can it? Can it really? But fate rises to the challenge. It always, unbelievably, gets worse. I grew up in the Hive, was raised a splitter. We were the local gang, but it was more like a tribe. Like all of the entities amid spires and above called gangs. We had our actual gangs, of course, our warriors, of which I became one. But we defended patches of tunnels, and it got brutal every day. Meat raids were the most dangerous, because when an enemy is dead, right? But you have to get them out of there, so you are slow. Unless you take a hatchet to the matter, but then you leave a fierce trail. Odor and juice drops. Dangerous in the tunnels. But eventually, it was not just the other communities and gangers we fought. Because this was Armageddon. This was the world of war. Orcs, greenskins would pour into the tunnels some years, lowered first, then rising, like they grew in the dark. They came in numbers, but they were stupid. Strong, but stupid. Easy eating. Well, if you got through the initial shock, the first wave was always the worst. Then it happened. Arbites. They came. They locked off the gates. Starved us of air. So many died. But the strong survived. When they came in, we were weak. They took most. Some died resisting. Most knew it was worthless to try in this state. Because we knew they were not here to kill us. Not really. Or they'd have left the air off. They wanted us. Only one use for an organized military group. We were to be Astra Militarum. We were in the Guard now. Basic was done in weeks. Uniforms were earned and signed for. Everything was signed for. Most of us just dipped our thumb in the ink and splattered it on the page. We were given the legendary las gun. Trained how to point and fire. Trained in our support equipment. Going outside was dangerous. We listened intently then, I can tell you. And we got armoured vehicles. With more guns. The kind we always dreamed of. But it wasn't much different. We would fight. We would kill. We were just better armed. It could be worse, right? The jungle wars were the answer to that question. Orcs, again, but in close proximity. We'd sweep for them in fanned-out positions. Others bundled up. Those units from higher levels of the Hive. We spread out. Because the greenskin amongst you is real bad. So we shimmied up trees, dug in, hid and waited. Sent off a few to bring them in. We'd gun them down in their heaps. But if they got past our lines of fire, it got messy. Bayonets are great, but these horrors don't die easily. They take a few down with them unless you are in control. But some waves were so dense, so unending, that they took control. Half our number gone in just 3 months. But it could be worse, right? That was when the reinforcements from off-world ended. Less bodies for the meat grinder. Then we heard that the ships were still docked. Nobody was going anywhere. Then it happened. Hordes of pink and blue things, like rattlings if you'd had exposure and had mind fog, spitting flames and killing all. The red beasts, the sword-wielding horned horrors who required volley fire to even slow down. The huge things of nightmare, twisting reality around them, making walls into water and air into acids, culling entire companies in single encounters. We were in the Steel Legion. It didn't matter. Whoever, whatever, wherever. We fight until we drop, and we never drop alone. I don't know how exactly, but we're still here. So, it could be worse, right? Our guns share their bounty with the enemy, and it has gone on for days, as it should, preparing for the main push. The sound of thunder, that is what some call it, of course. They are not from Krieg. You can tell instantly. This one statement shows it all. Because what is a reference to thunder but the revelation that you have lived under an open sky, a world where you can breathe the air unaided, without concern or danger. A soft world, and soft people come from them. So when I hear that phrase, I want to spit. Weaklings. Weaklings. They do not know devotion. They do not know discipline. They do not know courage. They are supine whelps who merely slow us down. Us, the greatest regiments the human race has ever seen. The death corps of Krieg. The greatest warriors outside the Emperor's own angels of death, his Astartes, his space marines. But they are modified, enhanced, engorged, and empowered. Are they really human anymore? Anyone else? Weak. Perhaps not Acadians or Australians. Maybe not Catachans. But even they are pale imitations of our grandeur. For we are the faithful, despite our failings. The debt our forebears foisted on us when they turned from the Emperor's light. We have spent our life's blood over countless generations in his name, to expunge that stain on our honor, on our very souls. Even so tarnished, knowing we are the ancestors of traitors, I still believe that none can even come close to comparing with our devotion, our sanctity. For we are the body of the Emperor in his stead. We stand on the walls of his Imperium and hold back the tides of filth. The Xenos, the traitors, the witches and mutants. There are others I would praise, Sisters of Battle, Inquisitors, Scions. But even so, they are elite units with elite training and elite weaponry, deployed in small units for specific jobs, to destroy specific targets. They are the scalpel, we're the shovel. We are not the same, so cannot be compared so. When all else fails, and the local militias are shown to be as worthless as we know them to be, then, and only then, are we called. Not to fight battles, not strategic strikes, but to win wars. We fight them, and we win them. All for the greater glory of the Emperor and his eternal realm. His Imperium of mankind. It is why I stand in this trench with hundreds of thousands of my countrymen. Why I wear my gas mask as a second skin, barely remembering what others around me look like, some days. I forget what I look like without it on. We are ready, and unlike every other formation in this assault, we are without fear, without hesitation. For we are the death corps of Krieg, and we are warriors. We fear not dying in the name of our Emperor. We only fear that our sacrifice will not be enough, that our paltry lives are too shabby and mean for our intent. The Caxons bark out, and I snap to attention. It is time. I pray to the Master of Mankind behind my mask as we step up and prepare. It will be a straight engagement, a simple affair. We know where they are. From our sharing, they know where we are about to attack. So they will bring the full force of their weapons against our sally. And it will not be enough. It is never enough. Oh, they may beat back an assault once, twice, or even 3 times, but they will fail. They will not fight hard enough, fire fast enough, stand long enough to stop our onward march. They will balk at the rate of attrition. Their men will lose heart, their lines will buckle. Their weaklings will flee, leaving behind only those worth killing. And we will roll over their emplacements, their positions, their fortifications. We will throw ourselves on barbed wire to allow the men behind to walk over our bodies towards their lines. We will charge their gun nests, knowing that though hundreds may die, one of us will get to the foot of the emplacement and then hurl grenades and explosives into their bunker to silence those inside. We will bring up assault squads, and their flamers will sweep the enemy trenches and engulf all who cower beneath their ramparts in cleansing holy promethium. We will go into their warrens and tunnels and hides, and root them out and slay every last one of them, no matter how long it may take. We will not stop. We will not relent. We'll not give clemency nor respite for even a moment. For these things we face offend the God Emperor. Their mere existence in his galaxy offends him. And in his name, we will exterminate them like the vermin they are. I had the singularly unpleasant experience of listening to the other officers once. The ones from other regiments, chittering and yapping away while I waited for our commissar to be done with them. Vacuous, insipid nonentities. I have no idea how he could stand it, listening to them. Despite not being of Krieg, he has shown he is actually one of us, not one of them. They all bleated about casualties and sustainability, supplies and scouting, like scared children. Weak. Barely a word about the enemy, barely a word about fighting them, barely a word about the next push. Pointless stuffed shirts festooned with metal trinkets that did nothing but display their cowardice. Because if you have fought in all the battles your brooches proclaim and come out alive, then either you are blessed, or miles from the front, or you are a liar. And I had a firm feeling that none of the popinjays strutting around the command staff were blessed. So a gaggle of cowards and liars were directing this war. Pathetic. No wonder we had been deployed here. Not a spine amongst them. The Caxons rouse again, and scream their calls across our lines, and then echo across no man's land. Even if they are too stupid to understand the intention of our barrages, the fury of our guns, then the wailing of the Caxons should do it. They should be ready to engage us when we advance. Do not get me wrong. I do not wish to be ended in a field of churned mud. I'm not stupid. But will I charge across that broken sod? The mud and pools of water that suck a man under? Will I charge directly at their heaviest emplacements, that spit out death at a rate these other regiments would flee from? If I make it across the lands between us, will I hit their lines and engage any who are there, no matter their size, weapons, or strength? Yes. Yes, I will. And I will do it without complaint, without hesitation, without qualm. Because I know that my Emperor, my God, is watching me. I know he will see how I died, but also how I lived. And I know that if I can tip the scales, can fight hard enough, can show my unrestrained sacrifice in his name, then perhaps just perhaps, one day he will take me unto his side. And on that day, when all of the souls of Krieg's sons and daughters are brought unto his bosom, when the sins of our forebears have been atoned, and on that day, it will be Krieg who sit at his right hand, as lauded as his own sons. For we are the death corps of Krieg. Our gift is death. To the enemy and to our Lord, our gift is death. It is a time of legend. The galaxy is in flames. The Emperor's glorious vision for humanity is in ruins. His favored son, Horus, has turned from his father's light and embraces chaos. His armies, the mighty and redoubtable Space Marines, are locked in a brutal civil war. Once, these ultimate warriors fought side by side as brothers, protecting the galaxy and bringing mankind back into the Emperor's light. Now, they are divided. Some remain loyal to the Emperor, while others have sided with the War Master. Preeminent amongst them, the leaders of the thousands-strong legions are the Primarchs. Magnificent superhuman beings, they are the crowning achievement of the Emperor's genetic science. Thrust into battle against one another, victory is uncertain for either side. Worlds are burning. At Isstvan V, Horus dealt a vicious blow, and 3 loyal legions were all but destroyed. War was begun, a conflict that will engulf all mankind in its fire. Treachery and betrayal have usurped honor and nobility. Assassins lurk in every shadow. Armies are gathering. All must choose a side or die. Horus musters his armada, terror itself, the object of his wrath. Seated upon the golden throne, the Emperor waits for his wayward son to return. But his true enemy is chaos, a primordial force that seeks to enslave mankind to its capricious whims. The screams of the innocent and the pleas of the righteous resound to the cruel laughter of dark gods. Suffering and damnation await all should the Emperor fail and the war be lost. The age of knowledge and enlightenment has ended. The age of darkness has begun. Horus's armada gathers, and he has defeated all enemies sent against him, even the Emperor's executioner, Zaras. One barrier remains before he can strike for terror and lay waste to the Emperor's dream. The Beta-Garmon system occupies the most direct and only viable route to the Sol system and Terra. To break it, Horus assembles a war host of incredible proportions, and titans in untold numbers. To lose here is to lose the war, and Horus has no intention of turning back. But the Imperium understands the importance of Beta-Garmon too. A massive army is arrayed, comprised of near numberless army cohorts, and a mustering of titans to challenge even the martial might of the War Master. Titans fight against titans, as the god machines of loyalist and traitor alike go to war. This conflict will be like no other before it, a world-ending battle that will determine the next phase of the war. The flower of humanity. I was there. I was there when the legions died. The days the back of our empire was broken. Titan death. is what many would call it later. But they missed the point. All of them. They always miss the point. I stand before my mirror, holding a single perfect goblet. I assume the Thunderbolt. My body strained as it should be. My goblet extended. An attendant now performs his role. He steps forward slowly. He ever so carefully tips the container in his hand. Water pours slowly into the glass. Not slapped down into its center, causing splashing. No. He did that the first time. He regretted it. This is not the way. Now, he does it correctly. He touches the tip of the receptacle to my glass. The water pours carefully into it, filling it from the side. The water runs down its edges into the center as it fills. He draws it back a tiny fraction and slows the flow even more as it reaches filling point. The last drop flows and he draws up the reservoir in his hands. The goblet is filled to the brim. Beyond. Were I to move a single muscle in any part of my body, it would overflow. I stay in position as the chronometer ticks on the wall behind me. I am centered. I am calm. I am rigid. I am disciplined. My sinews turn to fire as the moments click past. They then take on a more dangerous element, as I almost feel my senses retract from my body. It is an attempt by my sinew to take the strain from my mind, from my decision. I snap my mind back into control. I force myself to feel every last element of strain. Only in this way can I fight and master the fatigue that is attempting to shut down my senses. If they do, I will quake. A shudder will go down my arm as it will slowly dip down under the pressure, and the water will fall from my goblet. I watch as the sun rises, its light creeping down my head and then directly into my eyes. I do not shield them. I could not with my limbs, but I do not do so with my eyelids either. I take the discomfort. I eat the distraction. I welcome it. The more challenge, the better. I stand unflinching in position, feeling every muscle, accepting their screams. Every corpuscle, every nerve is alive. The chronometer finally chimes. An hour. It is too short, but there is a war going on. I slowly stand, bringing the goblet to my mouth. I toast the morning light. Not a drop is spilt before, not one at the end. When it is empty, when I drink every last drop, I am a machine. My fuel, food, and water. I maintain my body, the shell that houses my animus, my will. Yet I yearn to return to my true form, my metal skin, my friend and enemy, my destiny and my curse, my titan, Ostium Paniches. I have met many a marine, have witnessed their wrath, their skill. I have seen their discipline. Each one is a man in a million. I have met the navigators, those who see into the warp and allow our ships to ply the galaxy. Theirs is a singular mutation. They must be hardened of spirit to resist the things they see with their third eye, the madness it induces. I have met those who command vast powers, able to bring down lightning or read minds, yet they are not proof to but one sister of silence, their dour countenance barely remembered, yet ever there to drag the powerful into powerlessness on their black ships. But all that is special about all of these beings is given to them. By heritage, mutation, lineage, or training, they are the rare, but they are as numerous as the stars in the galaxy, compared to me and mine. My father reminisced often of it. The moment he knew. The moment he said I proved it to him. He needed no other to confirm it. For I was but a child, small, scrawny, but lithe and nippy. Yet my brother was of some age above me. I could not win. I could never win. But I never once yielded. He took me, my father told me. My brother dragged me to the window. He threw them open. Then he ducked down and grabbed me. I could not resist physically, but I did mentally. I went rigid, and I glared at him, daring him. And he did it. He held me out of the window, dangled me there by my feet. I looked at him. My tiny face scrunched up, and I glared at him. Nothing more. I did not wail, I did not struggle, but I did look down. But then glared at him again, daring him to do it, saying in every way but words, "Do it. Drop me. Throw me to my death if you will. But I will not yield." My brother feigned resignation and brought me back inside. He beat me. But he wasn't striking me. He was hitting himself. He had lost. I took my thrashing. I laughed when it was done. I laughed at him. He did not return to silence me. He knew he could only do it by ending me. And he would not do that. I was his little brother, after all. He did not even pass basic examination. He went on to a glorified desk job, a ceremonial role. I made princeps. As my father said, he knew that I would, because he did not stop the beating. He did not step in, even when my life seemed in danger, as I was dangled out of a window to a drop of some 3 miles down. He said I was always in control of the situation. I was. Will. The others have no idea what it is. They think they do, but they do not. We are will. Or at least, we start as such. We princeps. Few can maintain the rigors of control under the strain we are placed. I have witnessed princeps become too connected to their throne, to their titan. Some have even submerged themselves in amniotic tanks to be perpetually with their partner, their titan. But this can lead to the death of character, the absorption of consciousness into the whirlwind, into the titan itself. I lost my mentor to this. It was not so long ago, and I still miss his barked commands into line. Of course, mine are cool and calm, always. He became aloof, dispassionate, centered only on the enemy, ignoring all but the fire of battle. And we knew. We could see him devolve every day, becoming as hard as the metallic frame he thought was his own. It did not go well, and eventually, he was not supported one day. I made sure of it, for if he had returned to our lines in the state he was in, we would have lost more than his titan. We would have lost some of those who tried to take him down. So I let the enemy have him. The scum. I withdrew when I should have advanced to support him. I miss him. and I miss his Titan in the line. But it was reclaimed. Perhaps it will fight again. None questioned me, not about that day, that decision, nor any subsequently. It needed to be done. He had become the machine, an honor to some, but he was not able to lead, not able to take orders. So in this war, against our opposite numbers, against our own kind, it could not be tolerated. Their principles seem to be devolving during this war. When we stand in our lines, we are silent, we are still, we are will. They are a collection of monsters, fidgeting, shuffling, swaying, and bucking, prepared to charge, ready to fight. The Titans seem to be in charge across the battlefield, not the traitor princeps. It is getting worse. This gives us some advantage, but their ferocity, illogical and oft suicidal, counters it. We are fighting a never-ending war against our own. It pains us. Every princeps here will die before they bend the knee, but it is painful. Our own Titans dislike it, or like it too much. They were never meant to fight one another. They were forged in the depths of time, in the Dark Age, but they were made to defend, to protect, to prosecute wars against the enemies of humanity. They were never designed to destroy one another, and this mad war is making even our Titans lose their sanity. What little of it they have. Their urges are more powerful than before, more bloodthirsty. By fighting the corrupted, our very own are becoming monsters. Thus, they fight against each of us princeps more than ever before. We make our lines again. Lines that none of us would have thought would ever happen. For there are so many of us. The Primarch Dawn drew the line. He said we would retreat no further. After years of combat, as warp storms shrouded the system, we were trapped in here with the traitors. Yet now they have stilled. The warp is silent again, and more ships have come through. Reinforcements for us. Millions upon millions of the Imperial army. Scores of Titan legios are here. Multiple legions of Astartes. We stand. Yet we knew that the War Master would come. He would appear soon, bringing all the force of his armies to bear on this one point, this one system. For if we fail here, if we do not stop the traitors, then they will strike directly into the Sol system, the footstep to Holy Terra, and the Emperor himself. We must stop them. We must stop them here. Thus are we stood in our hundreds, lines of Titans many miles across. And away from us, across the field, the forces of Horus walk. The Titan legios march towards us. And there will be no quarter asked nor given, for this is Beta Garman, and we must not fail. We cannot. I look up. Is this the end? The skies are burning. The comms officer steps back from his station, and his blank face lurches in my direction. Your request is processed. According to records, the formation before us is only 2 standard Terran decades old. I nod curtly, and return to watching the screens. Their deployment is typical for Astartes. My suspicions confirmed, my hopes answered. They have no idea who they are messing with. I could never get used to it. Despite the horrifying casualty reports, despite the forces drawn away from us to the front, despite the proof of my very eyes from the vids. We were fighting each other. On the verge of doing it. A footstep only from dominating the entire galaxy. Total victory within our grasp. It had happened. Damn them. The Marines broke into civil war. Their Primarchs turned rebel. Not all, obviously, or we'd already be dead. But half of them. Half. And the worst of it was Horus. Their leader, the most decorated general of the Crusade, the right hand of the Emperor himself, where Malcador was his left. Horus was his shield, his greatest son, his war master. Yet he turned. He went mad. And now, he had us all on the back foot. The merest idea of it. I couldn't get to grips with it. I'd be fighting against Astartes, the Emperor's angels of death. And truth be told, secretly, deep down, I was glad. That happened later. At first, I was so shocked it didn't process. How? How could any turn from the dream of the Imperium, the salvation of their own race? Later, when it sunk in a little, there was denial, then anger, then resignation, of course. Navy had taken an absolute kicking. They weren't used to fighting Astartes' fleets, and it went badly. Because they, the enemy, they seemed to have so many more Marines than we did. Of course, this was due to Istvan. 3 legions, and not just anyone, the Iron Hands, taken out. If anyone could have stiffened a line against the impossible, it was the Iron Hands. And they were gone. Ferrus was the Emperor's hammer, and he was just gone. Along with the Raven Guard and the Salamanders. And on they came from there. I still couldn't believe it most days. I've mourned, I've raged, I've accepted. But the shock has been so profound. And when we were told, I instantly knew it. I knew it to my core. Like when you fall in love or stare at your firstborn child. You know. And I knew something as deeply, as unshakably. No magic or mysticism involved, no. I knew it was inevitable. We would face Astartes, my unit, my world. And I decided then I would be ready. At my rank, I've been rejuvenated. I was there earlier in the Crusade. Not at its start, of course. That was centuries ago, more than I've lasted. But early enough. My unit was mine. We'd inherited it out of an old debt well paid. An act of heroism enriched in ennoblement. But it also meant my little army was armed, as it was then. For like many in the auxiliary regiments, we'd been placed on guard duty, given this as my family's fief, our army's zone. We were left behind to hold the place, the entire area. And we did. We put down 2 uprisings in our immediate region. But it had been quiet, really. So I had taken over from my father and learned from him. Learned everything I could. And I then went on to study. But not only arms, military doctrines and logistics. I studied reports, and I tried to keep track of things through my links in the Adeptus Administratum. The remembrances. I followed them religiously. That urge was beaten out of me for a time by my tutors. Then I eventually gained a tour of active duty. A decade. Witnessing them. I never dreamed of anything but their success. They were the paragons of humanity. But deep down, when I came back from my tour, I then trained and drilled my men remorselessly. I reformed them to their old lines and orders of battle, from when we took this world into compliance alongside the Marines, my father. I fooled myself that I was worried that anything that could skip past the crusade may be worse than our Astartes. And we, right here, would have to hold them. We normal men and women, we mere mortals. So I gained the best support I could. I lavished gifts on the local forge world, gained ties. I did not ask for more equipment. In fact, I asked for nothing at all. Merely the maintenance of that which was already present, of course. And I gained it. And now, it will pay off, because that is a new formation, the one coming towards us, and they have no idea what we've got. How could they? The modern armies and levies are gifted bolters, or even las weaponry. But we have that which started the crusade, because we are one of the original formations from Terra, our roots in the very unification wars. And those Astartes, those fresh-faced, violent traitor Marines that will assail us within an hour, they are in for a shock, because I am ready, and I know what they will do. We are ready. I know what they will do. The void shields ripple as they fire distraction bombardment, limiting our vision. Our gun emplacements are not large enough to hit them at this range, nor do we have line of sight. The lines of trenches, traps, mines, razor wire and pop-up emplacements are formidable around our city. But our defences are utterly circumvented, as we feel the ground beneath us shake and shiver. As expected. They did not assault by drop pod, due to our shields and firing arrays, so they landed, and I instantly knew. I've read my Principia Bellicosa, seen them do it. I had hoped that they would underestimate us, for we are of the pedigree of the Solar Auxilia. We are men of war, of the Great Crusade. It runs in our veins. But did they know that? Clearly not. Their termite carriers break through the marble of libraries, through the rockcrete of our main thoroughfares. They dug from below and rise up. Before their gates open, they cover the area in a gas. By its hue, it contains something very nasty. Something that would have utterly neutralized all normal Imperial army these days, for yards. So when their hatches open and they begin to come out, they are altogether wrong-footed when they are met with immediate counterfire. From high vantage points not brought down in the rubble, from men all around them. I deployed them, you see. Small fire teams in hundreds of rooms near crossroads, facilities, and anywhere of strategic importance. Shock 1 for the Astartes. We're still here. And this is due to our armor. Contained suits are what we have. Heads, masks, full air. Helm systems not too far off Marines. So the gas does nothing. My boys attacked them with gusto. Now these are still Astartes, and they slaughter many of my men. They mob out into the streets, but many can fire from where they are, in deep, nice shade. Shock 2 for the Astartes. It seems these green troops, Marine or no, have not experienced this before. The Marines are dying. Their warplate, their power armor, is not being hit by bolters or lasfire, but Volkite weaponry. Old weaponry, our weaponry. Each Astartes either bursts into flames or avoids dying to one shot as another, then another hit them. The Marines are dying. They react poorly, but logically. They stop coming out of the termites so quickly. They roll and leap and gain cover where they can, and they are good at it. So they are slowly coming out. Surprise 3 for the Astartes. I order the heaviest weapons fired down on the termites, in unison. Their beams strike them and begin to blister and cook the metal. Not slagging it as fast as a melter, of course, but the fire from the riflemen, the culverins, adds to this. And soon the Marines have no choice but to charge out in thick, lovely, target-rich environments, as the transports cook them if they do not. My men are gutted and sorted wherever the means have gotten amongst them, but this is why we have small fire teams. As one is annihilated, it just opens up the Astartes to crossfires. And they die. Heated metal burning flames and smoke trains coming from cracked eyepieces, the corpse inside their armour charring. The termites are gone, slumped back into their burrows as liquids and chunks, whatever inside now crisped. The Astartes are now being hunted, room to room, but we have done it. One whole chapter of them gone. They will try again. Next will be a frontal assault. But today, I feel we may just even win this war. I stand, surrounded by the dead, the dying, mired in mud. Every inch of my body screams under the fatigue, the cramps, the pain. We have stood in these trenches for days, firing when they charge, snapping off our shots with discipline, but with a desperation brought on by the constant waves of their assault. We can hear them shouting, preparing their next one. The orcs. They are coming again. They are coming. We spent days here, unsupported, uncared for, holding, standing. It's all we can do. Stand and fire, fire and stand. Rinse and repeat. The no man's land between us is piled with their dead, and yet they still come. Reinforcements were promised 5 hours ago. There won't be anything for them to reinforce if they don't pull their fingers out. Then, inevitably, they arrive. The orcs charge again. But this will be the last time. There are too many of them, and too few of us. We cut down the greenskin line troopers, as we have for a score of assaults. But behind them, coming out of the dusty, dirty hellscape, armoured orcs. They're elites. And our lasgun fire barely scratches them. Taking between 5 to 10 of us to concentrate down one alone, they lurch towards us in a slow run. They will hit, and we will die. Curse Central Command. Curse them. Where are our... My mind goes blank and my mouth yawns open. My jaw drops at the spectacle I now see before me. Lasfire now strikes the orcs, but it starts to cut them in half, blowing huge chunks off them, melting them in their armour. Those aren't our guns, not standard las guns. They cannot be. Then I near soil myself as a huge hand clasps my shoulder. But it's not green. As I flick my eyes to it, it's brown. And I follow the hand up the arm and into the eyes of a man. A man a foot taller than me, both wide and tall it seems. His visor is up as he winks at me. Hogging the best spot, soldier. My turn, eh? And I stumble as his arm firmly moves me backwards. I stagger and sit on the blocks at the bottom of my trench. Then I look up and down the line as they fire in unison, and the orcs die. Our reinforcements, They have heavy carapace armour, hotshot las guns. All of them are 6'5" and more. Kasarkin. Sweet Holy Emperor on Terra. They have sent Kasarkin. The Orc heavies are cut in half, but the boys behind charge hard. They are about to hit the lines when I see a beautiful sight. A holy sight. As the Kasarkin launch themselves over the top and countercharge them. The greenskin filth almost seem happy about this for a second, screaming their bellows at the shock troops as they charge to meet them. But the Orcs are not able to bully boy the Kasarkin, who are near their own size, sometimes stronger. And the Kasarkin are armed with power swords, flails, and all sorts of melee antiques or rare weaponry, and they cut the Orcs and stomp them into the ground before ducking back into the trenches, ready for the next attack. They slaughtered them. They slaughtered greenskins in close combat. The same man who replaced me in the line. He jumps back into the trench next to me. He beams down at me with his near toothless grin. So many little enamelled hinges lost in previous battles. His body must be a patchwork of scars to match his face, his mouth. He simply states, "Okay, soldier, it's going to get hairy here now. Main push from the scum, so we've been told. That's why we're here. Best you take your lads back. Get a breather. We might need your help later, eh?" I nod. Although I am pretty certain nothing the Orcs throw at them will make much odds. For they are the best of humanity, the best of Cadia. And wherever they fight, they bring back the old war cry. And Holy Emperor, it brings a rush to just hear it. Not screamed in panic, not shouted like some talisman, but torn from their very hearts. A statement of fact. Cadia stands!